Welcome to Africa Uncovered. History isn't just about the past, it's a living, breathing force shaping our present and future. And today, we're thrilled to have someone who brings history to life in the most vibrant way possible. Dr. Monicca Bhuda is not just a scholar, she's a storyteller, a cultural guardian, an activist, and an innovator. From uncovering the legacies of powerful African queens to decoding the mathematical genius hidden in Ndebele art, her work is rewriting the narrative on African history, heritage, and identity. Oh, and did we mention, she's also a children's book author and a champion of Indigenous knowledge systems. Dr. Bhuda, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Kate, and greetings to all listeners.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being with us today. I'm so excited to have this conversation and to dig a little bit deeper into your background and your research. If we can start, if I may, with a question. If heritage was a song, what sort of song would it be? Would it be a battle cry, a lullaby, or a call to action? And what does heritage mean to you? And why is it so crucial to reclaim and celebrate it?
Oh, all right. I think it would be more like a kind of a chant song where people are energized, are dancing, and are rejoicing. But at the same time, it could be more like a lullaby where people feel the spirit of Africa moving and descending, and where the singer sings in a very quiet, peaceful voice, and there are birds sounds around in a very more like in a fire. People are surrounding a fire and they're in a circle, form, and everyone is clapping or someone is feeling, and people keep feeling the spirit, and you hear sounds like people are feeling the sound. So that would be the way I would describe heritage. And what was your next question? I didn't hear that last
It was a very long question, to be fair. But thank you for that description. That was quite beautiful. I was really taken back to just your depiction of the fire and the chanting, and such a beautiful way to describe heritage. Thank you, Dr. Buddha. So the second part of my question is, what does heritage mean to you? And why is it so important to reclaim it and to celebrate it, especially here in South Africa, with the history that we have, with the situation that we find ourselves in the present?
Heritage is a part of life of who we are, and as South Africans for a very long time, heritage was neglected and it was deemed inferior due to colonization and all the struggles, that were there in the past. So reclaiming heritage means also re not only redoing, but it's a matter of representation of people. And everyone, by the way, Kate, has, heritage, South African, African, and people from the, descendants of India, and everyone who's born in this world has a heritage background. But there was a time in this country where heritage was neglected, where there were policies also that did not allow the celebration, of heritage, where it was seen more like primitive, that it shouldn't be developed further than it was during that time. So with the new South Africa, I believe that there is so much investment in its to reclaim heritage in this country, and to celebrate it, and hence why we have even so many people right now who actually come to South Africa through tourism to experience the natural heritage and cultural heritage, where you see in terms of intangible heritage, when you see a lot of people singing and dancing for tourists, when you go to the likes of Kruger National Park, where people experience wildlife for the first time, waterfalls. There's so many things people are fascinated about, because South Africa is investing a lot in reclaiming and preserving, because you can reclaim something, but if you don't preserve it, it fades away. So we are working very hard as a country to preserve heritage, natural heritage, and also cultural heritage. So I think thus far we are, well, because heritage, contributes also to tourism and economic development, because most people, even those who practice cultural heritage, for instance, are doing it not only for cultural purposes but also for economic benefit. And the more they benefit economically, is the more they practice whatever that they are practicing in order to preserve it for the next generation, because the economic benefit gives them energy and power to further, protect whatever heritage practices they have.
Wonderful. So in a sense, it is a cycle essentially. If one preserves their heritage and you work towards that, you also benefit, and then in turn you are developing that for future generations, and not just for the individual, but for a society and a community and a country as a whole,
Yes.
which I find really interesting. And it's interesting if you look at that cyclical nature. It's fascinating what you're saying about preservation and not just reclaiming culture and heritage, but rebuilding it and maintaining it. As we're here at the University of Mpumalanga, Dr. Buddha, how do you see that process evolving? You talk about the fact that we are actively as a country restoring, maintaining our heritage. How do you see that from your position where you are, from your career on a daily basis?
The University of Mpumalanga prides itself for being an African university in South Africa. And I mean, let's make an example with a painting on by the gate, which is a
Yes.
symbol that the university, is advocating also for decoloniality, where universities must incorporate, heritage, and not only heritage practices, but also indigenous languages. And hence why the university is passionate about the local languages that are spoken and that are made a priority in the Mpumalanga province, and advocating for their development at a provincial and also at the national level. So, in terms of the University of Mpumalanga, I mean, on Africa Day, you will definitely see certain events, not only public lectures, but also certain events that involve students participating, and also their registered student structures within the university, from different ethnic backgrounds. You'll find Xhosa, Zulus, and everyone else, including people or students who are from cultures that are not, or who are from cultures that have been infused in others. Because in South Africa, we still have diverse cultures or languages which are infused in others. So you'll see that those students from a certain cultural group also are allowed or also have their own groups. And during the Heritage Month or during the Africa Month, that's where you see them dancing, rendering poems and, doing some sketches for the university. And the university has also what we call competitions around that. Another thing that we will be meeting in this year is the book festival. So the university is going to host a book festival, and is working towards it this year, where we'll add, write not only, of course, indigenous language writers, but also writers as a whole from other languages, in order to celebrate diversity. But there is an emphasis to say we do not have many writers in indigenous languages. So this call also encourages people to also write in their languages. And also another thing we're going to have is a short story writing competition that we'll be hosting by the university will be hosting, where students will have to write in English, isiNdebele, Siswati, and Sepedi languages, and the winner's book will be processed and published, and it will be displayed during the Heritage Month. So the call is yet to come out. I think around the 15th or 20th of April, we will have that call, so that in May, when we celebrate the Africa Month, that's when we will have the winner announced in May. And then in September, the winner will participate in the book festival, which the book, possibly the first print of the book, will be displayed. And then, of course, it will be critiqued for further, corrections and refinement. But that is what the university is willing to do, this, language promotion.
Wonderful. It sounds like there's a lot of student development and mentorship going on here, as far as I can see, growing talent among among the university students and encouraging them to embrace their culture, embrace their heritage, embrace their past. That's so exciting. So Dr. Buddha, you yourself are an author. Will you be any books at the book festival yourself?
Quite sure because I'll be one of the organizing committee members.
Okay.
So there will be a lot going on because during those sessions, what is going to happen later that that day is that people will be in divisions. So they'll be divided according to the categories of the books that they publish. So I'm more going to be overseeing because I'll be one of the key people who have organized the book festival. So not
Yes.
really. I don't think, but maybe it's something I will just mention if I need to during the maybe if we were gonna have a session with all authors before they go to their respective divisions. Maybe something that I can mention, but I will not be displaying any books for the festival.
Okay, okay, I hear you. But you do have a book coming up that you're planning on publishing on Monday. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, what I'm publishing on Monday is actually an academic book, not a children's book. That one, the children's book is still on the pipelines. I don't know, but I'm not finding time to further, oversee the book because it takes time to, publish. But I do have, my draft saved and ready to be published. The one that is coming on Monday is an academic book that focuses on indigenous knowledge systems, where we have invited authors from different backgrounds who have passion for indigenous knowledge systems to contribute, whether you're from economics, whether you're from development studies, agriculture, languages. We have authors from music from all over who have passion for indigenous knowledge systems. So the book will be published with the IGI Global Publishers. And yeah, I think we've started this project in June, if not July last year, because it takes almost a year to get it right. And I'm very excited. It's been a learning curve, especially because I am publishing for the first time as an editor for a book, for an academic book. I'm used to publishing for children and of course contributing book chapters and articles, but to handle a book project that contains 52 manuscripts is a lot of work, challenging but exciting because there is this adrenaline rush that you get. And also it's a learning process because I'm co-editing with an established editor, someone who has done at least 6, if not 7 projects with the IGI Global Publishing and has indexed all her work with Scopus. So I'm learning a lot from her, knowing that in the next 2 years or so, I'll be able to, to do it on my own. So it's very exciting, and I can't wait to see what other authors who are main contributors have in store for us, because we couldn't pin this book without people showing interest, submitting their work, having busy schedules, but believing in this project because in what you do and they do not trust you as an academic, they will not contribute. So I'm very happy that they trusted a young scholar like myself and believed that with whatever that I've currently contributed to the bodies of knowledge, I can also pin this book. So it shows the confidence that they have in me, and I'm very excited to see how the book actually turns out.
What a wonderful opportunity to be able to do that. I think from being able to go from being an author in itself is incredible to now being an editor and in other people's work and working together and collaborating. That's so incredible. Can you tell us a little bit about what the book is about and perhaps what, if you've written any other publications, what they've focused on? A broad question, so feel free to
Yeah.
answer how you feel.
Yeah, so the
Yes.
book is more like the relevance of indigenous knowledge systems in modern society, looking at, reclaiming in systems, and as I've said, the chapters contributed are from people such as agriculture, economics, commerce, heritage studies. People are from, because IKS, Indigenous Knowledge Systems Disciplinary, so it's people are able to integrate it in so many fields. And the contributors of this book are not only South Africans. We have received chapters from India, we received chapters from Germany and the US. So it's very exciting to see that, you know, the call for this book has reached a global scale, and people have been having a positive feedback about the book. So the book looks at how Indigenous knowledge contributes to diverse. um yeah, it's beautiful. It's a wonderful book that contains 52 um 52 chapters, and it would be more exciting to actually break that book into two, having volume 1 and volume 2, but we are still waiting for the main editors of the IGI Global to actually confirm if we can into 2 volumes. But so far we have 52 chapters, and yeah, people are actually responding. But initially we had at least 80 abstracts. Of course, the numbers, they do decrease because it's a long commitment. It's a long commitment that requires patience, and that requires also communicate with authors, because people forget, people have jobs and other extra activities that they do. So there is a strategy that we've been using for the past 6 months to has it been 6 months, something like that, 6 to 8 months. We've been using a strategy to actually communicate via email, move from their website, because there is a site where they submit, but rather communicate via email, provide authors with my number so that if they have problems, because there are people who are submitting on the system for the very first time, yeah, so they don't know what to do, and it can be very frustrating. And if you do not know who the editors are, you will end up leaving the project and submitting your paper somewhere else. So we've developed that system of more like a community that speaks to each other and that benefits from one another, because if someone has an inquiry, it's easy for someone to learn that, oh, by the way, I also have the same problem. So it's good that someone has raised it. So it's more like the end. It's been a beautiful project.
Wonderful. It sounds amazing, and I love the theme of collaboration and working together. I think often as an author you can sort of end up running your own show, and yet this seems to be a very teamwork focused project, which is very, very interesting. Dr. Buddha, you have published a children's book. A bit more about that. Inspired what inspired the book itself, and what message do you hope it to young readers, and in fact adults who feel like who decide to read it?
My book was actually inspired by my work, master's dissertation. Um, but I remember I saw a lady on Facebook who wrote a book called Beats, and I loved the book, and I went to buy the book and I read the book. And because I had an idea on how to give back to the Ndebele community that participated in my study, I just felt like if I could do it in a way of a book for children, and provide it also to the Mpumalanga provincial government, for the government to also distribute it in libraries, be an awesome or a wonderful contribution. So when I wrote the book in 2021, and I was already collecting data also for my PhD. So it was kind of linked to both master's and PhD. And I felt like the knowledge that I was given by the participants can actually benefit children. So all I had to do was to write within, using a mentality of a child within that context. And I had to read a couple of books for me to think like a child, for me to use terminology of a child. It's a very challenging task, because right now, I mean, I'm seeing a bottle of water, if you were to speak like a child, you will say remove that bottle from the table. It's totally different when when you have to think like a child. So I think that was the challenge, to just remove the academic and to wear an invisible jacket of being a child. But what I did, I pinned a book that spoke about how Ndebele women who are of Ndebele art transmit the knowledge to children, because this indigenous knowledge comes from mother to daughter, right? So the mothers are responsible for teaching their children how to do mural art, even the beadwork, but it was more focused on mural art. So how to paint, the mothers are responsible. So the book speaks of a young girl on how she became a known painter. But what I did, I took stories from different participants, that they told me, this is where I grew up, this is what my mother used to do, so that I could have a success at the end, mixing real life stories to create one. So basically mixing green, blue, orange to create a unique color. So it was important that I didn't pin it about a certain person in particular, but rather all Ndebele women, for them to special. Because if I pinned it about someone, it would have been more like a biography of honoring one person. But if I share stories, if everyone felt connected, then people will know that they are also important, because Ndebele art is a cultural practice for everyone. It's just that only a few people are known for it. But the book basically honors all women who have tirelessly worked to maintain this art and who are sustaining their livelihoods through this art. So on my PhD work, actually, this book comes in one of the chapters as the success of my journey as someone who studied the Bachelor of Indigenous Knowledge Systems program to a PhD level. So it comes as this is an output, and that's what we want to do. I mean, South Africa, Kate, it researches, it invests more research. South Africa, has passion for research. Even DHEAD has a call and has a mandate that universities must have indigenous knowledge, So for me, that was the output of what I've been doing all this. You not just have an output that is a certificate. You need to say, based on what I've learned, this is who I became or I've become. You don't just become because you have an NQF level 10, but you become through your works. Based on my training, this is how I contribute to the bodies of knowledge and to the future generation, but most importantly, to the community that has voluntarily participated. There was no money compensation. People had things to do, but they decided to be part of my participants, to give me that someone would have had to pay for, but to give me for free, because I was a student. And during that process, I made commitments, and I committed myself at some point that, I'll give back to the community. So this is one of my contributions towards giving back. So that's how I wrote the book.
Beautiful. That's such a story, and I think there is so much that went into it. And I can see how passionate you are about it, and how it's a children's book, but I think there's so much underlying the words that you've written. And I think if our readers can perhaps have the name of your book, so they themselves can go and read it and find out for themselves, what culture and heritage is all about in this context.
Yeah. So the title of the book is Kwekwe's Cultural Mural Art. So Kwekwe's is KW. So it's KWEZI. Kwekwe's Cultural Mural Art. And in Isindebele is Umgwalo Bukhari baka Kwekwezi. So there is an English version, and then there is also an Isindebele version. And just to add on that, There is a book that I contributed in by Nyesha Williams. She is a USA citizen, where she was writing on children's affirmations in South Africa, published with Penguin Publishers. So I'm a self-published author, but within a publishing company. But I am independent, I would say that. But the book that I've contributed and I worked with Nyasha and other authors from different cultural backgrounds, because we also write in our indigenous languages. That book is sold by exclusive bookstores. I've seen it from Game and Macro. I've seen it also there, and you can get it also from Amazon. The one that has been written by Nyesha Williams, but there is a part of the book when you move to the Isindebele part, where I have contributed. Even on the cover, my name also appears as one of the authors, I would say co-authors, who contributed in indigenous languages. So, yeah, so those are the books thus far I have on my name.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Bhuda. And if you could just tell us the name of that book as well.
It's called South African Children Affirmations.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm sure our readers will be very, very interested to more. To go back to your background as someone who is in the Ndebele yourself, if you could give one piece of advice to women standing at the crossroads of their dreams and society's expectations, what, coming from a position of being a successful woman yourself, what advice would you give to someone who is looking ahead and yet also has pressures to deal with and faces historical, injustices that are still present, and other obstacles? What would you as woman?
That, being a woman in general is difficult. Being a woman is difficult, and I believe that at some point there is a time in your life where you feel like you're at the bottom of the pyramid, and maybe we are at some point, but there is just something amazing about envisioning your future. Because you know what you're going to work towards, right? You know that certain setbacks that are here, they're not permanent. If you understand that, if you master that, I think that's the key, that you understand who you're meant to be. And when you understand who you're meant to be, you don't sit on your couch and think that will come from heaven. You work towards that person. And working towards that person is filled with challenges, lessons, crying, sobbing, celebration, and life is about seasons. There are seasons where we cry, which is winter, and then there is everything is blossoming, and you think, oh my God, you have that whole, everything figured out. I'd say to young girls that do not think you are not important in the room. I have developed that skill as a young girl, sitting in a room with people that during that time I knew they were big. I knew that they had, accreditations. They had built profiles. But I have learned to sit. I belong here. This is if I was called, or if my name was mentioned to be seated on this table with these sharks, then I should be sitting here, and I'm worthy to be here. Because what people can do, Kate, what the abilities people have are that they're able to see the kind of a person you are meant to be. People are able to see your stars. People are able to see your passion. But if you do not see it, then you'll go astray. So women need to master that they are more than, of course, they are homemakers, they can be mothers, because there is so much hated with womanhood, but they can be more than that. They can be that and more. And they should have visions, and they should stick to them. They should not withhold their visions and what they're meant to be or who they're meant to be because of society standards. I have worked very hard not to listen to anyone who tells me how I'm supposed to look or where I'm supposed to be according to certain cultural norms, that right now I'm supposed to be in here. I have defined my own destiny. And I have seen the power of doing that because people may not clap today, but they will clap one day. They will see the way you see it. You just have to be persistent and move forward, regardless of the talks, the whispers, people telling you that for generations, this is how girls used to be. This is how girls should be. You will tell them, not this girl. And one day they will see that path that you took or you decided to take. I have people, girls that I've been associated with in my journey in my early 20s. And I used to look like I was drunk or I was possessed when I used to tell people, this is where I see my life. This is where I want to be. Today they see the vision because I have held on to it. So people may say you make hate, people may say that you do not have certain skills, but the more you keep pressing on and working on your craft, because when you work on your craft, your skills become enhanced. You will get where you should be because you know that they don't have to tell you who you are. You know who you are and whom you're working to be. And in that process, you should be proud of yourself until you get where you need. And we never get there, by the way. We always want to be versions of ourselves. And that's what I love about people who don't set limits for themselves.
I found that fascinating, and again, it sounds like an anthem for womanhood. It sounds like a battle cry. It sounds like you're
Yeah.
saying, go forward and right the wrongs and
Mm.
make something of yourself, and don't let yourself be hacked by expectations and by what has been, but rather look can be, what will be, what may be. I think that's so beautiful. Dr. Buddha, you actively work to address historical injustices or injustice. What does this in this context, what does community mean to you, and how can we actively heal past wounds? If we're looking back to womanhood and how it's often received, or often been maligned, and pushed to the side, how can we work to heal these wounds as we stand today, wherever we are, whether listeners or you or myself?
Kate, the South African Constitution, when you look at it, when you study it, when you give it so much of your attention, has been structured wonderfully, especially for women, in terms of job opportunities, in terms of bursaries, education, and other related opportunities. There is so much investment on gender equality. There are departments that, advocate and advance, women. I think one of the that exist, especially in indigenous communities, basically resources, and people not getting the right information. I think one of the things that I want to do is to do community engagement and empowerment for young girls. And even though I informally mentor girls, because I don't have any mentoring programs at the moment, usually tell girls to go to school. Go to school, get an education. If you do not go to a university, get a certificate. If it's for to be a nail technician, that's fine. A hairdresser, a massage or whatever, it's fine. You want to be a masseuse, you want to be this, it's okay as long as you've empowered, as long as you've empowered yourself. And I usually tell young girls, especially girls in their 20s, that this is the time to discover who you are. You have no business, thinking about, of course, there is romantic love, but you have no business making it your main investment. It is part of life, but it shouldn't be your main investment. You shouldn't to be one thing, but you are capable of being Kate in different forms. So it is the time of your life where you experience yourself. It is the time of your life where society sees you as most beautiful, most energetic. You that energy, towards building yourself. There is no reward in reducing yourself or in adhering to what the society claims a woman should be. The only reward is to satisfy their needs, to say, aha, the next one, and tell them lies. That is the only thing that, because they benefit from feeding you lies and illusions, and so the world has so much to offer. There are people, women to look to see as inspiration in this country, and beyond borders. There are women who are doing wonderfully well. Of course, there is still a long way to go, especially also when it comes to gender violence, when it comes to cultural norms that an 18-year-old is an adult, she can get married and have children. There's just so much that is still happening. But the South African Constitution on its own allows women and girls to work on themselves and to further explore their potential. It is just up to a person whether to embark on that journey or to still believe that women are only good at cooking and cleaning, and that is fine. And you can still be a good cook and a good cleaner. You can still do that. But there is just so much in a person than just being that. You can just be way much more. I always tell that every single day is a chance for you to develop yourself, to say what is it that I can do with myself today? What new skill can I learn? Which new course can I study? What can I do? I can be a content creator. The opportunities are endless, even at workspaces. Women are encouraged to study, to apply. I mean, let's look at academia, for instance. It's been a men's world for a long time.
Oh, yes.
It's been a men's world. When you speak of a professor, you automatically thinking is a man. When there is a position for a vice chancellor or there is a chancellor somewhere, it should be a man. And now when you see a woman, she's you. You are her. You can see that indeed people who are like me, who've experienced possibly things that I experienced, are able to do this. So why not me? You understand? So it's very good that even in this university, I mean, the vice chancellor is a woman. So you see yourself in her. You know, she's a reflection of who you are, basically. You can see that it's not, there is no magic. There is no, this is someone you encounter at a physical form. It's not maybe something that is altered on TV, it's for acting. It's someone that you see on a daily basis or often. Then you can see, and we see so many professors, so many people who are doing wonderfully well, millionaires, billionaires who are women. They've done it. They've also have children. Others are married, others are not. And that shows that you can be more than what the society thinks of you. You can be a mother if you want. You can be a wife if you want. You can be a professor if you want. You can just be more than what the society be. And there is so much, Kate, backlash surrounding that, because remember, to transform people takes time. There is so much backlash related or in regards to women doing things, women having careers, achieving. A lot of people mistaken it for masculinity, that, oh, no, she's going to tell me this. I don't want, people will, yes, 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 all the time. So there will always be backlash, especially if there is transformation. So as girls, we always have to be prepared for whispers, but we move. The world is also our oyster.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bhuda. I think you're right in so many ways. There are so many things we can be, and yet there are still so many obstacles that we ourselves have to take responsibility for and confront. It's never going to be an easy path, I think, and you will come up against problems and issues, and in many ways I think it's up to us as women to confront those and to deal with those. I'm just interested in looking at your research into African queens, talking about womanhood. What African queens, or who are some of the African queens that history has forgotten, and what has your research revealed about them? What can they tell us? And how has it changed your own understanding of power and leadership, particularly in African history?
It's basically, I think when you read modern history, it's mostly about kings, kingdoms, everything is associated with males. But prior to that, there've always been queens. And even today, in modern society, where traditional authority is still enforced or is still practiced, you find a lot of queens making decisions on behalf of nations and people. And of course, because a king has to always be the first step, or the leader will always implement what the queen has suggested. But I just want to make a very critical example about a queendom that I've been admiring for, which is kingdom from Limpopo, Sinishapula, the Rain Queen. I think know about the Rain Queen history, and of course, right now, there are current news about the young Rain Queen who's supposed to be seated on the throne. But if you look at her, you see how the authority that she has. You see the history. I mean, if you read the history of her mothers and you can see how powerful, her leadership and rulership is. And what I also like is because she's associated, or that queendom is associated with African worldviews. I mean, if you say someone is a rain queen, what does that mean? Someone will like, what does that mean? And it means that she commands rain. So it also links to, African worldviews. I mean, a lot of researchers in the past couldn't understand that. No, rain is due to weather forecast. Climate change is. How can a human being, be responsible for rain in this nation or in this ethnic group? And she is, and the people who came before her are. So she's seen as powerful, because what is it that we as people cannot live without water. Water is a source of life. And basically it means she's a source of life, because she prays and rain comes, and she commands and rain comes, and rain and water, I mean, is the reason why you and me are here. So it's just one woman, or just that history, I look forward. I'm interested in, but not that doesn't mean that we don't even acknowledge, other women in leadership. Women are leaders in their own homes. um they are leaders at their workspaces. They are leaders in general. If there is a woman in a workspace, you just know things will move. There is actually this joke people like making, and say, if your secretary is a woman, things will move, because that's what women do. They problem solvers. You give her a house and she creates a home, because women are always strategic on how to solve problems. So I all existing women who play their part in different ways to build society, whether it's cultural, whether it's political, social, but they play their part. And those who also work very hard in order for the younger generation to be inspired by them. So, yeah, anyone I'm good for it. I go. I support.
You back them.
Yeah, I back. Sister.
Get let's go.
Yeah, I bet. You will explain to me later what was happening, but I'm like, she's right.
Wow. Thank you for that. That was so engaged and so interesting. And so now moving on to a very different but interrelated research, and looking at the Amandebele people and their mathematical artifacts. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? I think most people wouldn't think of math and art as friends, but your research says otherwise. What is what when you talk about ethnomathematics, what's this magic you're talking about that's hidden in the Bella designs?
Yeah.
And how does it relate to indigenous knowledge systems? Or does it?
Yeah.
Answer that one.
So ethnomathematics is the religion and mathematics. So basically looking at how mathematical ideas and concepts influence culture. So my research has focused on the Ndebele mural art and beadwork, making a case Ndebele patterns shows symmetrical geometry. Also putting it to writing that Ndebele women are mathematicians who never attended any formal schooling, basic mathematics. They understand, symmetry. So, zigzags, triangles, rectangles, square, diamond shapes, you know, and yeah, those are shapes that I can mention that I can think of right now. And of course, as people who construct mathematical items, I mean, even their garments, the paintings, and artifacts in general, let me just use that term. They use these artifacts for cultural practices. And that's where culture is. They are embedded in culture. It's the very same thing as medicine, traditional medicine. If you look at it in a but it has cultural relations. You do not wake up the next morning and you want to be a traditional healer. You go through practices, you go through training. For others, it's just people dream about mixing herbs, but that is science. If you look at the history of Mapungubwe, for instance, the trading system that was used, you can see the evidence, ancient evidence showing that there was so much happening in terms of science, engineering, and so forth. Even the likes of Great Zimbabwe, showing that the earlier civilization of African people was involved in mathematics and science and technology. And hence why today we have studies that focus on indigenous knowledge and STEM. And STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, where we're looking at mathematics STEM in indigenous cultures, to say that, well, making an example of the Dogon people of Mali, who are able to see stars such as Sirius A and Sirius B, just using naked eye and dreaming about these stars when, telescopes, when they were used to see that, do these stars indeed exist? They do. So, out of culture, they know that if a certain star is facing this direction, this means this in our culture. But it's also what? It's also astrology. You understand what I'm saying? Now, looking at, going back to the Ndebele people, it's the same case. They construct, possibly some of them do not know that it's mathematics. But it means that there is geometry that is traced within their bloodline, or within, there is a historical geometry, and especially because people were migrating during that time. And it's used as part of culture. And it was a very fascinating study. I really enjoyed that.
Wonderful. And how do you see yourself as preserving these mathematical artifacts through writing? I'm just curious as to whether you see yourself as concerned.
Actually, not only writing. Like I said to you before, Kate, that we might contribute, through getting certificates, but physical work is needed. Hence, book is physical. Also, I really do hope that, there gets to be a point, just like Wits University has done it. Wits University has a gallery where they have included all the works of the legendary Eslango, so for exhibition purposes. So I'm confident that possibly in the next few years, it shouldn't be long, that there will be a proposal by this university to include actually, as possibly part of the library section, or somewhere else, because there is so much space and so much growth that is happening within the university, where African art will be included, not Ndebele only, but African art, or that we might have a center, of indigenous knowledge, where there is just a gallery where there are collections of African art within that center. But what I like about this university is that, because it's, I think now, there is just so much room for growth, so much room for suggestions, so much room for implementations, and there is, space for suggestions to say, this is what I suggest. It might not be something that can be implemented today, but it's something that we can always work towards, get budget and start such projects. Of course, we have relevant funding, such as the funding from the NRF. We have national what is it? Oh my God, CHE. Why do I? Why? Okay, I will remember. I'm sorry about that. But we have ICAS related funding from the National Heritage Council. That's what I wanted to say. National Heritage Council. Arts and Culture. We have NRF. We have UNESCO funding. We have actually global funding for such related projects. I think it's a matter of also putting together a team, having people who will focus on that mainly, but for such a university, there is always potential, even for a developed university. UCT has done it. I think UVS is doing it. We can do it because never underestimate someone you think is a baby. They can show you potential, true potential. So I think it's something that I would like to be associated with. If the university decides otherwise, that it will move to that direction in 2 years, 3 years, I think worth investing.
How exciting. Yeah. That will be very interesting to see how that will play itself out. And I hope that happens. I feel like there's space for it. Mm-hmm. And I really hope that moves forward. So watch this space. My last question, Dr. Bhuda, is if you had the power to add Indigenous knowledge systems into every school curriculum in South Africa tomorrow, what?
Definitely Indigenous games for primary school. Reason because a lot of children struggle with grasping the content that is given to them, but those from Indigenous communities especially practice mathematics, let's make an example, on a daily basis through playing Indigenous games, through shepherds, because if you were to ask, for instance, if you were to ask a boy who's a shepherd if he can observe or he can see if there is a cow missing from cattle, he will be able to see it even if there were 100, so he will be able to see that there is a minus based on practical observation. But if you were to say 100 minus 1, because they're not experiencing the numbers, they do not know how much they will need to, it's a cram strategy, unlike when something is practical. So that includes other indigenous games, but also they teach children leadership, because when you play games with other children, you're able to also see if you are a leader or a follower. You're able to work, with a team, because in life at some point we all have to work as teams. No man is an island. So you are able to see your leadership skills, you have to see your talent, teamwork, patience. So there is so much character developing in that process, not only learning mathematics or how to count, character development, but also being able to experience what you see at home being taught in class. Let's make an example. Let's say there are Ndebele designs. Your grandmother is a painter, and the teacher wants to introduce the subject on shapes, right? And then the teacher shows you first, and then it says, and the teacher says, from this painting, I'm going to take out a triangle, a circle, right? You've seen this at home. And then when those shapes are introduced individually to say, well, this is a triangle, the way it's drawn, you are able to see that it was taken from the painting. And my grandmother does the same thing. So now you will be more interested to find out what else can she do. You are learning the skill, preserving the culture, at the same time learning mathematics. So you are able to even participate in class because there is something that they're doing at home. It relates to who you are, you understand?
Yes,
so you're able to raise your hand because not only are you seeing this for the first time, but because it relates to home, right? So let's say you're also being taught how to count. And the example is sheeps. One chicken, how many chickens are left? Because you feed chickens at home. You're excited because you feed them, So you're experiencing the numbers. So children need to play. And then when it gets to, of course, high school, the CAPS curriculum actually for indigenous systems in primary school, and also looks at what is it? Life sciences. I think it's life sciences education, where there are aspects of indigenous knowledge that can be implemented, in life science, and hence why I STEM. But also I also love IKS in life orientation. There are aspects of who we are, that teach us about life. Indigenous education, for instance, how to be a person. Ubuntu, is part of life orientation. I am because you are, and because you are, therefore I am. And I think that's a principle that we as South Africans abide by. If right now you were to leave South Africa, I promise you, in 2 weeks, you're gonna wish you were back home, because nobody's smiling at you, nobody's greeting you, nobody's offering to help you with the groceries or something, you understand? Nobody's complimenting you, So you'll realize that the first thing you're gonna do when you get to OR Tambo Airport is to greet someone and just ask them how are they doing, and they will respond back. Because of the spirit of Ubuntu. But there are just so many aspects of indigenous knowledge systems that can be integrated in education. And introducing AKS in education is not doing away with what currently exists, but it's a matter of implementing what has always been there. It's a matter of integration, that the curriculum needs to speak to people. And also, languages, there needs to be an option to write in or Isindebele, right? Because I understand things said in Isindebele more. I speak Isindebele more than I speak English. Let's look at Chinese. They're able to develop latest technologies in, in Mandarin and other languages. They do not have to, to speak a different language. So learning in our indigenous languages, indigenous knowledge systems, I think the country is moving in the right direction, and I think it's doing its best. With that, it's a slow progress, but the progress is there, and hence why people like me and you exist, to also write and document this knowledge, so that when the future generation comes, it will find works that have done, in writing, of course, and physical works that can be seen, also, so that they can take over, they can be encouraged to take over and continue with the work.
Wonderful. Fascinating, Dr. Bhuda. Thank you. So if there are any artists or writers out there who it's up to you to march forward.
Yeah.
And to make culture and heritage the main character.
Yeah.
And I think from what I'm hearing, that Indigenous alive and well.
Yes.
In our country, and education is where it starts.
Yeah, it's where it starts.
Yeah.
Home, Indigenous education, and formal education. That's where it starts.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Bhuda, for being with us today.
Thank you very much, and thanks to all the listeners.